Anselm and Martha Threadgold took a chance, leaving everything behind to start over in a new land. They came to South Australia with little, but built a life from the ground up. Through hardship and loss, they raised a family, worked the land, and helped shape the community around them. What they left behind is still visible today. Stonework that is significant in size and built entirely by hand. Anselm Threadgold was born in 1825, the second of 5 boys for Yorkshire blacksmith Jerry Hall Threadgold and his wife Martha. Though baptised as Anselm, due to his broad Yorkshire accent, which typically dropped H's, his name was recorded in documentation as Anselm. Growing up in working-class family, his father's trade as a blacksmith provided some stability, but opportunities for advancement were scarce. Anselm would have watched from the shadows, eyes wide, learning the rhythm of the hammer and bellows, the hiss of water on metal. From his father, Anselm learned precision, patience, and the pride in a well-shaped thing. Martha Threadgold was also a child of Yorkshire parents. Born in 1831, she was the 6th of 10 children to Thomas and Elizabeth Threadgold. Martha's father, Thomas, was a lime burner. Her father's trade, lime burning, was gruelling and hazardous, exposing workers to toxic limestone dust and caustic quicklime, which often led to chronic lung disease and chemical burns. Like many working-class families, they endured high mortality rates. Only 4 of Martha's 9 siblings survived past 21. Anselm and Martha were married in 1851 and shared more than just a future. They shared blood. They were first cousins, with their respective fathers, Jerry and Thomas, being brothers. While this might seem unusual today, it was common in the 19th century, particularly among working-class and rural families. In Britain at the time, an estimated 4 to 5% of marriages were between first cousins. What few understood then were the potential genetic risks, a factor that, along with shifting social attitudes, made the practice less common by the early 20th century. With the Industrial Revolution reshaping England, for many like Anselm, now making a living as an agricultural labourer, the future was less than promising. With the idea of a better life and joining his older brother who had made the journey to Australia a few years earlier, Anselm and Martha emigrated to South Australia. Unlike other Australian colonies, South Australia had been founded as a free settlement, meaning that it was never reliant on convict labour. This appealed to the working class, who wanted a fresh start without the social stigma attached to convict-settled regions. Beginning there was no easy feat. In 1852, Anselm and Martha boarded the Shackleman in Liverpool, joining 780 other passengers bound for a new life. The journey was long, gruelling and dangerous. Disease spread quickly in the cramped conditions, and 64 passengers, most of them children, died from scarlet fever and other illnesses. The high death toll on board the Shackleman was no accident. It was the result of poor conditions made worse by choices made before the voyage even began. The British government were introducing new emigration regulations aimed at improving passenger safety, requiring better ventilation, sanitation and overall living conditions. But these new standards came at a cost, one that ship owners were eager to avoid. To sidestep compliance, some ships, including the Shackleman, were rushed to sea before the regulations took effect. The result was predictable. Poor ventilation, overcrowding and a ship that became a breeding ground for disease. For many, the voyage to a better life had become a fight for survival before they even set foot in Australia. When the ship finally reached Port Adelaide in 1853, Anselm and Martha stepped into a world that was both full of promise and was utterly unforgiving. The South Australian climate was not like anything they had ever known. The damp grey skies of Yorkshire were replaced by a blazing sun and dusty dry air, where temperatures could soar above 40 degrees. a brutal shock for settlers accustomed to England's mild and temperate climate. After arriving in South Australia, Anselm and Martha moved inland to Stanley Flat, a rural district near Clare, not far from Anselm's brother, Alfred. Initially, they leased 20 acres from a larger landowner, living in a small pine hut with a vegetable garden. They may have had a cow and some chickens and possibly a sheep or two, but it would not nearly have been enough to sustain a family. Many settlers like Martha and Anselm would take on work doing whatever was needed to supplement their income, with seasonal labour, shipping, fencing contracts, carting goods, domestic work, anything to keep food on the table. For at least a decade, Stanley Flat was home. Between 1856 and 1865, they welcomed 5 children: Jerry, Mary Ann, Martha, Fanny, and in 1865, Alice. The roots in the area extended beyond agricultural work, as Anselm played a key role in establishing the Wesleyan Chapel, becoming one of its trustees. In an era where families lived in isolation, scattered across the countryside, churches provided both spiritual and social connection. But for Anselm and Martha, the chapel's importance would become deeply personal. When they helped to build it, they could not have possibly realised how soon they would come to rely on its solace and the support of their community. Life for early settlers was fraught with hardship, but few threats were feared more than disease. The colony was still developing, with limited medical resources and poor sanitation, making outbreaks of infectious illnesses deadly and often uncontrollable. To Anselm and Martha, this reality struck in the most devastating way. On July 27, 1864, their 7-year-old son Jerry died of diphtheria. Just 2 days later, their 4-year-old daughter Martha succumbed to the same disease. Diphtheria was one of the deadliest diseases of the time, particularly for children. It spread easily through coughing and sneezing, and once symptoms appeared, it progressed rapidly. The bacteria produced toxins that attacked the throat, heart, and nervous system, often leading to suffocation or organ failure within days. The mortality rate was terrifyingly high. Without treatment, up to half of those infected died. Even with medical intervention, survival was uncertain. For Martha and Anselm, the loss of 2 children in just 48 hours is almost unimaginable. With no effective treatment available, they could do nothing but watch as the disease took hold. The deaths of Jerry and Martha marked one of the darkest chapters of their lives, a cruel reminder of how fragile life was on the colonial frontier. Losing 2 children was a devastating blow, but Anselm and Martha didn't give up. They still had a family to raise and work to do. They left Stanley Flat behind and moved north to start fresh on a new piece of land.